What's up, guys? This is St0p, bringing to you another audio commentary for WCReplays.com. This is an Orc vs. Undead audio commentary. And before people start to whine, I cover both sides of the matchup. In fact, I cover more from the the Undead perspective. And that's mainly because I think Undead players have more trouble with this matchup than Orc players, for the most part. Because it is definitely a hard matchup for Undead players, whether or not you think it's imbalanced. And I think part of the reason for that is just the sheer number of strats that work for the Orc that don't work so well for the Undead, and the fact that the Orc has pretty much free reign of the map at tier 2 if you both play standard cookie cutter. That's because of Ensnare, it's because of Hex. There's just not much the Undead can do with Fiends versus those combinations. Ghoul users, that's a whole different area, but there's a lot of things that Orc can do to counter Destros now. But anyways, let's get it paused. 1 minute mark, 1x speed, Fog of War off on Physics' point of view. Physics is an Undead player from Clan Ariana. I do not agree, I don't know who he is. I assume he's in Clan Ideal. I should know this, I'm sure. But anyways, he's a high level semi-amateur Orc player. He's better than me. He's much better than me. He's a good player. And Physics is also a very good player in Clan Ariana. First out, big shout out to Boostan. He's hosting this game. He's a friend of mine and the Ariana manager. Good kid. Shouting him out. Sorry. Anyways, to look at the game, you notice it's on Secret Valley. Definitely an Orc map in this matchup. It's not. Some people put it on the level of Lost Temple. It's not anywhere near on that level at all. I think it's a much more balanced map than that. The creeping isn't amazing for Orc, in that there aren't a billion places that drop Claws of Attack, and also your second hero doesn't creep amazingly well, like it does on Lost Temple. And the fountains are also not centered; they're kind of out of your way. But that having been said, the Blade Master and Grunt can solo either Hell Fountain minus the dragon, and you also get that unlimited tier 1 healing, which just makes Grunts that much better and allows the Orc to be that much more aggressive. Physics knows all these things, and Undead players out there, it's important that you know these things too, that's in the Orc's mind when he plays on Secret Valley. He's probably going to be more aggressive, and he'll probably skip an early lounge too. That's what a lot of Orcs do. It gives you a slightly faster tech, and you really don't need the whole purpose of the early lounge is healing early on. If you have a Health Fountain, you don't need it. You'll see 99% of Orcs don't build an early lounge on Temple, they build it after the tech. And that can also affect your game if you're Undead, because that makes your harassing more effective if you can be strong around the health fountains, which isn't easy to do, granted, but it is possible. And then at least you can wake up the creeps to, things like that to stop him from getting free healing, or at least slow down his creeping. From the Undead perspective, I think this is a pretty good map for Undead in general. Like I said, it's an Orc map, but Undead vs. Elf on this map is pretty good, and Undead vs. Human on this map is pretty good. Undead vs. Human is good because the Expos are pretty hard to defend. They're basically midway between both bases, which makes their expansions, the slightest bit easier to harass once they get 50 guard towers up, whatever. But until then, it's easier to harass. And also, a Ghoul to Garg to Destro or a Ghoul to Garg versus Night Elf works really well because you can get very quick level 3 abusing the Gargs on the Health Fountain with the dragons, kind of like you'd see on Knollwood. So I think it's a good map for Undead to learn, even in this matchup. And I know this doesn't happen in this game, but Ghoul to Garg to Destro, Ghoul to Garg to Fiend, that actually works very well on this map as well. Because if you start Ghouls, you can assume that there'll be Verns pretty soon, and even if there aren't, you can creep the dragon with the Gargs. But the Gargs also prevent the Destro push, and you'll see like Fav and a lot of pro players, they'll build 1 to 2 Gargs at tier 2. And the whole idea behind that is that one Garg with Coil can probably take 2 Verns on its own if there's no Hex. Or the 2 Gargs especially just pretty much destroys any early Verns. And then you can get them building Bats, which is just a total waste of food for Orc, and you're going to see that in this game. But anyways, I've done too much talking. Physics point of view, Fog War off, 1x speed. Let's get this unpaused in 3, 2, 1, unpause. The first thing I want to draw your attention to, the fact that Physics has done an Altar Ziggurat build with a later Crypt and a Tomb of Relics. I don't know if you heard me mention, but he's going Fiends in this game. This is not a standard Fiend build. There's his graveyard right now. It's a very late graveyard. It's going to be a very late Fiend. The reason for this, well, there are a few reasons for this, but the biggest one, I think, is it gives him a hero that is going to come out at the same time as the Blade Master. In fact, it's slightly ahead of the Blade Master, which is rare for undead. Usually in a Fiend build, their hero will be late. Why is he doing this? Like I said, it's Secret Valley, and Orc can creep very aggressively. And if your hero's out late, you can pretty much be certain that they're going to be level 2 by the time your hero's out, and full health, because there's a health fountain. And they'll probably be heading to your creeps and grunt creeping at the same time. I mean, basically, the Orc can get the level 3 Blade Master, the level 2 Windwalk, very quickly. So his goal early on is just to prevent that, to be aggressive enough that this Orc isn't going to get a free level 3 and just Windwalk and destroy the Undead's Physics' middle game. Another thing I want to draw your attention to, he has an Acolyte, a Scout Acolyte in the north. So many Undead players choose not to Scout versus Orc. I don't know why, but they do. Even in League play, you'll see it. And it's really, really suicide to not Scout versus Orc. And I know that sounds ridiculous, in that you can pretty much assume Alter Barracks every game, so what does that show? But it really is important. Not only because now Physics knows where the Orc is, more or less, because he knows that he hasn't crept and hasn't gone to the left of the map because of that Acolyte. So now he knows, he's going to check this Overseer camp, and then he's going to head straight to the fountain, which is exactly where the Orc is, and you can pretty much assume that the Orc's going to be near the fountain at this point. It's just a matter of which fountain. But the Scout Acolyte, going back to that, I mess around with Undead so much on ladder these days, I don't even build the racks. I skip the racks. And if they don't scout that, like, no matter how well they play early on, they're in trouble, you know. They can do more damage to me if they scout it, and it's just something they should be doing. It's like human, Orc versus human. If you don't scout, how are you going to prepare for a Firelord Tower Rush, you know? The one time that they do it. And that's kind of one of the main ways that Orc players lose to Firelord Tower Rushes, is they'll end up being creeping and taking damage when the Firelord comes in. So, scouting, very important, both races. Didn't really tell you anything you didn't already know. Physics right now. You notice he's not going to kill anything, I don't believe. No, he doesn't get a kill. The creeps get a grunt kill, which is still in Physics' favor. But he doesn't actually manage to gain any experience off of the Orc. I think he might steal this Brute. But yeah, he steals the... Oh, no, he didn't steal the Brute. Anyways, the whole purpose of what Physics is doing, again, this is like Orc versus human. You're probably not going to be able to stop the level 2. Probably not even going to be able to stop the level 3 on certain maps. But you can't give it to them for free. That's suicide. You need to be able to make them waste coil mana, make the Death Knight take damage, or sorry, if you're the Death Knight, just slow it down as much as you can. Anyway, Physics getting trapped there. He doesn't get the grunt kill, but the grunt dies. I don't necessarily think that was worth his town portal, so mistake on Physics' part. He doesn't play perfectly. In fact, I'll be honest, he's a very good player, but he doesn't do anything incredible in this game. He wins because of his strategy, and because he outsmarts the Orc, and that's just as valid as winning with micro. And it's probably, for my level of play, I'd rather be able to win with strategy, personally. It's much more consistent. And it's something you can do. It's like, you look at Axelav, I don't want to pick on him, he's a great player, and he's much better than me. But compared to, the people he plays against, his micro is not the best. You notice his APM, I don't want to get into that argument, but really, he wins by strategy and timing and being a very smart player. Anyways, drawing attention to the Undead right now. Notice he's going straight to Tier 3. That's a pretty big thing to notice, I think. He skips Slaughterhouse, which means late statues, which means pretty much suicide at any fight in Tier 2 versus the Orc. You really need statues. Assuming that you're going to want to fight the Orc in Tier 2. He's also putting up a Sacrificial Pit, which is with the Scout Acolyte from early on. So he has he was going to build an extra Acolyte anyway, so it's a good thing that he used the Scout Acolyte, if it stays alive. Dust going off by dust of appearance, especially on Secret Valley early on, because you're Versa Blade Master. It's not going to be a surprise to you when you see it chopping down your Acolytes and you have to buy the dust, or when it steals a creep kill. You're like, oh, if only I had dusted. Buy the dust. Anyways, looking back at his base, still no slaughter.